the universe's, evolution, and then, ourselves here, and also in the field is the reward is always the motivating factor, I think. In preying on some on an advantage, on a opportunity, to get a reward is something that I think it all comes down to, whether it be, to eat tonight or $5 in your pocket. It doesn't. It doesn't matter really.
In nature, what predators do is they thin out the stupid prey that are not paying attention.
Yeah, and well,
and the prey that are smart and aware and see the predator sneaking up on them and setting a trap for them and whatever, it becomes trap shot, or the ones that survive, so their genes survive.
And that's a perfect. Yeah, you nailed it right there, because that's how it's treated in exopolitics for the most part, I think, and ufology. It's the I'm going to play the celebrity thug here who's a babbling idiot, and says things that don't make any sense. But yet, because my footprint's so big, when new customer A, B, and C comes through the door, I can probably hit A and B over the head, and C might catch on to what's going on before I come around and swing and hit them in the head with the stupid stick too. So I'm doing pretty well. My retention is high, and that's something what
happens is it gets you frustrated, and you really have to laugh sometimes. Is you can say to people, "There's a trap right there. This is how the trap works. It's set for you. If you step it in right there, or you eat that poison bait, you're going to die." But they won't. It's not there. There's nothing happening right there. I can just step in and snap, bam.
Boom.
And they're dead. It's too late. By the time the trap closes on you, it's too late. You got to see the predator back in the bushes, or you got to see the trap or the poison bait, before you step in it or before you eat it, or you're dead. And it's the same way with human predators. The same way they're setting traps for us all the time, and getting our money. You're stealing our money through scams and viral marketing and
conferences that are full of crap,
con games, and they go after old people because they know old people are weak and their minds are starting to go and whatever, and so they really make a lot of, especially these Nigerians and whatever, make a lot of money off of old people, and get them to give them bukus of money, and or threaten them on the telephone. I know a lady that her father, was being threatened on the telephone because he'd given this guy some money and said he was a terrorist and he was going to kill the whole family and everything if he didn't get some more money. And the guy was giving him money.
There was a DA here in town, an assistant DA, that I worked with for a while. I did law enforcement work here in Raleigh, and her father was kidnapped by a gang member she put away, taken down to Atlanta, and ransomed and tried to be ransomed, basically. So, that's some crazy stuff going on right there.
When you go to take down a scammer or a criminal or whatever, they fight back, and often they'll sick their victims on you. And that's what happens with Alfred Weber and whatever. I'd get down on Alfred Weber, and he'd be able to turn some of his people, coming back and getting attacking me. There's very
And in my experience with that, that's an idiot hole, because I've posted conversations word for word that we've had with each other, and people can see on my website the Alfred Weber clown face that I got up there, where you can obviously see the progression of the conversation, and where he says some things and accuses others and dark cabal and all this stuff, which, by the way, I threw at him just to make him nuts one night on Joe Montaldo's show, UFO Undercover.
And you saw the politics of exopolitics. I don't know if you got far enough down on the politics of exopolitics down the list or whatever, that, I invited him over, we got into it and whatever, and it got so hot for him because Jeffrey Picard got involved in whatever, and he uses a squid defense on me. He throws up a big thing about me being a part of, the cabal or disinformation operative, and propaganda and everything else. So he throws up a big smoke screen and then he cuts out,
Well, and those are brilliant those are brilliant tactics by him, you know, in the Predator community. These are brilliant tactics by these talking heads, these so-called celebrities, you know, and that I like to call the celebrity thugs.
I used to work with Alfred.
Yeah.
You know, I worked with Alfred, held him. You know, there were several of us that founded the field of exopolitics, and Alfred was pretty together back then. But he's got old, and his ego has got completely out of control, and he'll believe or promote anything, no matter how crazy it is. And he was, you know, and that's where Jeffrey really nailed him, because when he was on posting articles in the Examiner, and they pay so much, you know, they pay so much for every hit. And in one case, he's made as much as $4,000 in a month because he had 40,000 people just by posting all kinds of crazy stuff and whatever, and getting hits on his page and whatever. And I think Jeffrey got in on the Examiner or something, and then led into him, and then the Examiner kicked Alfred out, and Alfred, you know, that hurt because Alfred was making a lot of money.
Ah, there we go. So no wonder you know, old Uncle Alfred threw such a fit there.
That's why he can't stand Jeffrey. You
know? Well, follow the money, right? You know,
not that Jeffrey doesn't, you know, but
he does his fair share amount of work on Examiner and plenty other places.
I know. So Jeffrey was really the one to nail him. You know, kind of the pot calling the kettle black. But you know, it takes one to know one, really. I don't want to be too hard on Jeffrey, because Jeffrey's been nice to me, but.
I love the guy too, and you know, he is what he is, you know, and if anybody doesn't understand that, then you know, I'm sorry. Eventually you'll figure it out. You know, it's like my epiphany with Third Phase of the Moon. It's a comedy routine. Now I'm over it, and here we go.
Yeah, that
know?
Third Phase of the Moon, I think you saw where I posted that one Michael Salla article where he's, you know, quoting Third Phase of the Moon guy and whatever, and he's buying into it. And you know, Michael's pretty good sometimes, but Michael just buys into these cases, and then when he's wrong, he just ignores it like it never happened before, you know, and keeps going on. And
part of the machine, baby. You know, you got to be able to take your hits and keep rolling, and you got to be able to rebrand yourself.
Yeah,
you know,
what the Exopolitics Institute was actually I was the first one to come up with that idea in public, because it was my father had started Tall Timbers Research Station to, you know, fight fire. And so I came up with the idea. It's all in the record, you know. It's on my blog and stuff way back when and whatever. And I came up with the idea in public. And Michael said that he had come up with the idea in private. And we started up the Exopolitics Institute along with Paula Harris and others. And but Paul Harris and I had some problems, you know, getting along personality wise and whatever, and it ends up I was on the board and everything and whatnot, and we got into it in a conference out, you know, that involved Paul Hellyer and whatever, and Paula was being protective of Paul because she had some trouble getting him there, and I didn't realize it, and I was just, you know, I was helping out Michael at the conference, and I met with, you know, I stopped and talked and communicated with Paul Hellyer and whatever, and she heard about it, and she just blew a fuse and came down on me and got me kicked out of Exopolitics because of that, and so then and some other stuff, but you know, Michael and I get along, you know, okay now, you know, and I'll support him, you know, when I think he's, you know, on a good case or something like that. But then what Michael ended up doing is then after I was out and whatever, then he put his wife in as a board member, and then he basically say he and his wife had founded Exopolitics Institute, which is not true. And I'm starting to call him on that, you know. And it's true that Michael put the most energy on it, but I put a lot of energy in on building that institute too and whatever. And I hated to kind of see it become a sort of a business for he and his girlfriend, you know. And so
the fruits of your labor
under the dam.
There you go.
but people need to know about these things, and they don't need to know about the history of things because it affects the institution, and you know, and how the institution, you know, operates. And so there's a lot of politics of exopolitics going on in the background all the time.
Yeah, and you know, it sounds like, you know, you're running with Paola was simple, and that's or Paula was simple as, you know, she was just protecting the pony she backed at the conference to show up and talk, and you know, and that's normal. That happens a lot too out there. You know, that's something I ran into with the New Jersey conference. You know, I had to run in with David Stinnett there, who was busy trying to claim that I don't know if you know this guy or not, but another bozo I ran into here saying that if you haven't seen a UFO or been abducted, then it disqualifies you from being a ufologist.
Well, which is bull, because basically, and this gets to another subject, and you said that you'd worked in the police force and whatever, is that there's most people haven't been trained in good intelligence collection and analysis. And, I learned it in the ecological field. What you do is you gather data, you develop a hypothesis about what's going on, you test the hypothesis out, you may adjust your hypothesis or even come up with a completely different hypothesis if it's not working correctly, and then you get an idea what's going on. It's the same way in the intelligence community, and I taught myself intelligence work from books on the CIA and stuff and whatever, how you gather intelligence, you process it, a skeptical person you don't want to be skeptical when you gather intelligence. Because other times you turn people off and they won't talk to you. So you got to be open, and it's time to be skeptical. That's when you do the analysis, not to begin with. And the problem is you got to
you got to open that net as wide as possible.
Yeah, you got people that'll believe anything, and then you got people that'll believe nothing. And throw the baby out the bathwater. And both of them are beliefs that do not allow them to get a basic understanding of what's going on and the nature of the reality that we're dealing with.
Oh, Ed, I like to call those people denialists. Yeah. There's two kind of skeptics here. The ones that are actually skeptical and willing to listen to, reasonable evidence or whatever they quantify as evidence, because, of course, that's a ever-moving goalpost, and we all know that.
Well, those aren't going to be skeptical very long because they're going to realize that there's a lot going on, but the ones that never change are the ones that are either running a counterintelligence operation or they are just completely in denial.
And the other ones that I consider in that category, in the skeptical category, the denialists who busy taking up the skeptical moniker, but they're not really, because they don't want to listen to anything, and it's all garbage to them.
Well, you got some people like Carl Sagan and James Oberg and whatever. They're high-level debunkers. They were running counterintelligence operations, against the public, and Oberg probably still is. Sagan's gone. Sagan, I think, probably replaced Menzel when Menzel died. Off the MJ12 committee and whatever. The astronomer Menzel, who had his own sighting, debunked his own sighting, was found on the MJ12 documents and everything and whatnot. Carl Sagan in 1962 in the American Rocket Society was talking about alien bases on the backside of the moon. And all of a sudden he changes his tune and starts debunking UFOs, probably when he moved to the inside, and that was part of his job, is to con people and fool people, into staying away from this subject.
Oh yeah, rule by intimidation and humiliation.
And another bad one was what was his name? Phil Klass. Well, it turns out, Phil Klass actually worked for before he worked for Aviation Week, he worked for General Electric. And General Electric has been on the get-go on the electrical systems and capacitors and stuff on these crafts and stuff and whatever. And he hobnobbed with the KGB and everything out in his sailboat out of Washington D.C. and whatnot. And he discredited abductees and even people that had sightings and whatever. He would move in and be friendly to them, get information, and then just slam them and just try to destroy their reputations. And and people like John Mack, they went after John Mack in a big way because John Mack was credible, and at Harvard and everything else. And so there are some of them that but they don't bother with just ordinary people or abductees or whatnot, unless there's some more of an agenda there going on and whatever. And when Carl Flock first got involved, I was on to him, and I realized that he was going to be in the debunker of Roswell, and I exposed him before he could before he really moved in and got involved. He used to work for the Department of Defense and whatever, and worked to try to discredit Roswell. And even there were like hundreds of people that were directly or indirectly aware of what happened at Roswell. And so you got the honest skeptics, but the honest skeptics don't usually stay skeptical that long, because if they're willing to listen and study the literature and they understand good intelligence gathering and analysis, they start figuring out what's going on. It's the ones that don't, and it's just as bad with the people that believe anything, because they too don't have the understanding of intelligence gathering and analysis and whatever. And you really have to. You have to be able to sort the wheat from the chaff. And these networks, social networks, are just flooded with trash. And so, unless you've got have been built some kind of a concept of good intelligence gathering, and analysis, either through scientific work or through, being part of the intelligence community or studying the intelligence community or whatever, you're not going to make sense of all this. I don't care how long you're in this field. It's an intelligence operator's playground.
That's for sure. It's a confusion
and
city.
Just like just like they kicked what's his name, out of NICAP, Donald Keyhole. CIA kicked him out. That's all listed in clear intent how they did that and everything else, because he was stirring up so much trouble out of NICAP, and then destroyed NICAP. And then what happens is here we have Dr. Hynek, who's debunking UFOs for the Air Force, suddenly starts to saying, well, we got to scientifically investigate. Well, what happened there? And what happened was Hynek, when he created QFOs and everything, he told Dr. Vallée that he was getting cutout money from the CIA from McGraw-Hill.
And that's what people don't get.
And so what he built was a civilian intelligence gathering network patterned after the old Civilian Observation Corps. When I was a little boy, 5 years old, my mother would go out to watch for enemy airplanes at Beachton here near Cairo, Georgia, and the civilians would call in if they saw an airplane or whatever to the military. And so what they did, they built QFOs as an intelligence gathering network and also a suppression network, because pity the poor guy that came to QFOs and it was leaking classified information on UFOs.
Right.
He goes right to the top of the intelligence community to nail him and throw him in Leavenworth. And then when QFOs went out, then we have MUFON. Then we have Thomas Dooley. He was retired NSA and Navy. He was 4 years in the NSA and the Navy before that. He was a teacher of intelligence procedures. He told me that personally via email, that he was a teacher of intelligence. So he's a mole in MUFON, and actually runs and controls MUFON, first as the corporate secretary, and I think he's on the board now and whatever. And people think that the members of MUFON vote for the board. Well, they don't. The board is separate. The board votes for itself who's on the board, and then it depends on what Thomas Dooley wants. And also, the information goes into MUFON if it's really good stuff, like abductions and contact cases and stuff like that. It just disappears in a black hole, and the only stuff that they report back to the members and to the public and whatever are sightings in their MUFON journal and stuff. Or used to be. Maybe they're reporting a little more other stuff now. And in fact, Elaine Douglas, she was with Operation Right to Know. Mike Jamieson and I formed that and had demonstrations in Washington, D.C. in front of the White House and whatever and whatnot. And Elaine Douglas had joined us and whatever. And Elaine Douglas took on the MUFON hierarchy, trying to make them accountable to the membership, and they would not allow it. And people can look up Reform MUFON on the internet and get into all that. And what was happening there was two databases. There was one database for the public, and then there was the other data that was going in on that database was just disappearing and going into a secret database that the public would not have access to.
Oh yeah, and and right now what's left of MUFON is such an embarrassment. I think when John Ventry is out there making comments about aliens abducting Malaysian Flight 370. Yeah, I think we're done here.
Well, you got good people in MUFON. You got George Flyer, who's MUFON Southeastern Station Director, who's had contact with the extraterrestrials themselves when he was a boy.
I like George.
Yeah, and he's credible and whatever. And then a lot of the local MUFON people are good, but once they get on to what's going on and they start raising a little hell, they get kicked out of MUFON.
Yeah,
I was a MUFON section director at one time, and I passed on a lot of information. In fact, MUFON published an iCircle that I got when I was lecturing in Russia. That was given to me by Dr. Lipsoff. They published it on the front page of the MUFON Journal and whatever. But I found out MUFON real quick. We started having demonstrations in Washington, D.C. Dennis Stacy ran a hit article on us and whatever. And let's see, our good friend he goes all the way back to NITEC days. Larry Bryant wrote an article for us, and MUFON wouldn't publish it. So they publish what they wanted their membership to hear, and won't publish what they don't want the membership to hear.
That's for darn sure. We're up against it here with the last 4 minutes here, Ed. Okay. Go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you online so they can check out some of the links that you put up there that I like.
Me up on my name is Ed Komarek, Komarek, and you can look up a comprehensive exopolitics, a comprehensive briefing. It's exopolitics.blogspot.com / and that you will find the link to there on my blog to the book, and you can read it free or download it as a PDF, or if you want to read it in print or you want to read it on Kindle, you can order it from Amazon. And so that's, there you go. Even if you type in exopolitics and you get past Alfred Weber and Michael Sowell, you'll find me down there too in my book.
There you go.
Whatever. Yeah.
Go down a little bit and probably into page 2, and that way you're guaranteed to miss.
Yeah, it's not even page 2. I think I'm pretty much up there about 2 or 3, or sometimes sometimes 1 or 2, depending on the search engine or whatever.
There you go.
So my strategy is, it's not to fight these people with the trash anymore. It's just try to get this book out, try to get good information out. In fact, I try to be nice to Alfred Weber, where he doesn't kick me off of his Facebook pages because I post my book onto them.
There you go. You know what? I got a buddy that might help you out. He'll be able to spread it on all their good stuff there without without getting.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you got a lot of disinformation, you got a lot of trash. I try to get my book out there to people, and get to them before the trash gets to them and they get discouraged and leave the field, which is unfortunate.
Exactly. Thanks for coming on, Ed. It was nice having you come on. You're a smart guy. You got a ton of information, a ton of case history that you know. I love talking it over with you, and I love talking about the politics of exopolitics. Of course, that gets me up in the morning. It gets me jazzed. I love everything about not only the people involved in it, but I love talking about the fan base in general and their enamoration with a lot of what goes on out there that's really just noise. Last minute. Probably the latter. So anyway, that's about how easy it is to do one of these shows, folks. But anywho, like I say, if I inspire anyone out there by being terrible to do it themselves better, then hey, don't forget me in your book then. Give me credit and I'll say something stupid on your show. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, I like to have too much fun. I got to get out of here. We're in our last minute. Tomorrow night, Big Shoulder Sports Show. If you're interested in sports, you want to hear me, 7 to 9 right here, uprntalkradio.com. I know there's a few out here that follow me. Scott Bushy, longtime listener, very active on the Facebook page, which is something I wanted to get to real quick too. On Facebook, this is in general too, and of course on the Mind Cemetery, like every article that's put up there, comment on something, say something, because the reach is drastically being reduced out there, and not only on my page, but on everybody's page out there. So keep that in mind. If you like someone out there and you like somebody's page, click like, make a comment, help them out, up their ability to reach everyone that's actually liked their page, because that's something Facebook has changed real recently. So that's my tiny rant against Facebook and Zuckerberg, that bastard. Have a good night, everybody. See you next week, and hopefully I'll still be on Facebook by next week. Welcome to the Mind Cemetery, where the paranoia about the paranormal comes to rest every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here, exclusively on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. Heard around talkradio.com, on FM 107.7 New Orleans, as well as 105.9 in Pass Christian, Mississippi. As always, we will do our best to delve into the unexplained, weird, and sometimes creepy topics you won't hear in your local news. Like what you hear on the show? Then like the Mind Cemetery Facebook page and follow @Mind Cemetery on Twitter. If you want to check out the show on your time, download the Mind Cemetery off iTunes and at soundcloud.com/UPRN. For all of the UFO Paranormal Radio Network's shows, visit mindcemetery.net for info on upcoming guests, weird news, award-winning blogs, show archives, and of course the ever-present UFO Stalker. Join the discussion live in the UFO Paranormal Radio Network chat room on Pal Talk, or call into the show at 1-504-273-7379. Welcome, everybody, to the Mind Cemetery. Today, February 9th, Monday as usual. A little later than usual, but that's the way it is around here. You can check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Just search Mind Cemetery. This week we have Ryan Malahi with us, and hopefully I pronounced that right, Ryan?
You got it. Malahi.
There we go. Hey, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, right? This week, let's see, I had planned on having him on last week, but he was sick, and that's okay because there were new developments in what we wanted to talk about, but we'll get to that later and introduce him and let you all know what his area of expertise, so you can say, who the hell is this? You know, because that happens a lot when we're busy not whoring for all-stars out there. So I did find something today, though, that was interesting. Charles Manson's fiancée. I don't know if you saw this, Ryan, but evidently the angle she was working was basically to set old Chuck up to be a circus sideshow when he dies.
Oh, wow,
And,
I didn't hear that.
Yes, she basically lets mummify him like linen and putting him in glass, and he is now for hire at your weddings and bar mitzvahs.
Oh, wow, because, yeah, I had heard that the wedding license had lapsed. I saw that this week, but I had not heard that.
Yeah, New York Post here talking. Wanted to marry him for his corpse. That was her money-making scheme. The 27-year-old Afton Elaine Burton there, known as Star.
Taking a note from Greer on that one.
Right. You know, every good sideshow, right? She even modeled herself to look like a lot of his old lady friends there with the straight hair and the dark hair and all that kind of stuff. So it was really interesting how she weaseled right in there on old 80-year-old Chuck there. So yeah, I don't doubt it, but that's a hell of an angle right there, kid. You got to respect the hustle on that. I mean, the commitment right there. You know, I'm willing to marry Charles Manson and more than likely have to consummate this with an 80-year-old Charles Manson. Okay?
It's scary. It's scary.
The commitment. Yes. Bravo. Bravo on that attempt, kid. That could have been fun, actually, to see his body carted around the United States and at circus sideshows. Come see Charles Manson. Might as well. I don't know. Would that kind of that might be saying something about Chuck there at the end. It might be the ultimate disrespect for him, or being the psychopath that he is, he may enjoy the fact that everyone's looking at him after he's dead. Right?
True. It could go either way.
The ghost of Charles Manson could come back to haunt people if you don't come look at his body or pay $5.
Yeah, he'll become part of Rob Zombie's new amusement of horrors. He'll be an attraction.
The curse of Charles Manson, right there. No freebies, right? Charlie, don't give out freebies.
Oh my God,
that's always a good time. But yeah, that is a really strange one that popped up here today that I had to hit, regardless of what was going on. And we've got a couple other things that we'd like to talk about. But I want everybody to know about the Exeter case in New Hampshire, because I know very little about it. I actually know very little about a lot of things. Just ask a few people, I'm sure. So go ahead and refresh everybody on that story, or tell them for the first time, and if this is the first time they've heard it, then I'll be around with a hammer to hit you on the head. And you can check out New Hampshire UFO Research, which is the organization that Ryan heads up there, in his website and his Facebook page on Facebook, New Hampshire UFO Research. Just search for it. It should come up. It's nice and easy to find. We'll even do some links straight back from Mind Cemetery Facebook page. Isn't that wonderful how that works out? Magical.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yes, wonderful things. Science and magic and social media. I'm posting it now.
Great stuff. But yeah, well, basically, I mean, I'll start out just by saying, basically I've been doing UFO research for about 16 years now. I got into the subject because I had a UFO sighting myself in New Hampshire and just really got fascinated. So I started doing research from there, and it just kind of snowballed. The more I looked into it, the more fascinated I became, because I started to find cases like Exeter and other really credible cases in New Hampshire involving police and military, incredible witnesses. So kind of the deeper I dug into it, the more really interesting stuff I found. So that was pretty much, what got me into researching UFOs. And, I research UFOs in New England, but more with a focus on New Hampshire specifically, because that's where my sightings have been. And as far as New Hampshire UFO research, basically what I've tried to do is, I write research articles based on different cases and try and shed light on older cases and any cases involving New Hampshire, whether they're more current or historic cases.
Right, and that's a vastly understated thing right now, because everybody's worried about, well, where's the new cases, where are the news cases? Well, the old cases didn't get the attention that they should have got to begin with.
Very true.
They're old. A lot of the first-hand witnesses are gone in a lot of cases, and it's information that needs to be passed on correctly down through the generations, and not only for historical reference as well, for anyone that wants to go back and look at it in the future, so they don't get handed a pile of a bunch of a mess, basically.
Definitely, yeah, and that's exactly right. And that's what I've tried to do, is just take in all of the UFO information that I've been able to find for New Hampshire. And there's been a few cases that, through looking at them and putting fresh eyes and going over stuff, I've been able to make breakthroughs with or find new information on. So I think it's a matter of going back over some old stuff and not taking the stance that, there's nothing left to be found in the old stuff, because a lot of times there are. And, even if we look at cold case files on TV, I mean, even with, something as serious as a murder mystery, it's always good to go back and put a fresh set of eyes on a case. And, also being able to apply the internet, different technology that wasn't available in the 40s, the 60s,
right.
Even the 80s. So I think that, that's what I've tried to do for New Hampshire. That way, when people come to my site for information, they know that I'm approaching it from a center of gravity, and I'm trying to just provide them with good reference material on the subject.
Another plus side to a lot of the old cases and being able to put fresh eyes on it is that for a lot of years on older cases, if you can get the original research material that was gathered at the time, either videotapes, photography, whatever, a lot of the times you're getting your hands on something before somebody had time to get in there and doctor it up and make it something it isn't.
Exactly.
So there's another fantastic benefit of looking back at old cases and seeing how things were before the mythos took over.
I agree. There's a few Blue Book cases that come to mind. One that's a New Hampshire case, and then another that's a New England case where, there's actually radar charts of the movement of these objects and, estimates of the speed. And, back then there just weren't the sort of aircraft, even stuff we may have now that we don't know about. Chances are, we didn't at least have those sort of things. So, there is that lack of contamination from, Photoshop or, any of those sort of trickery that you can do now. So that's another great thing about those cases.
I've always loved just looking at some video now that people are trying to pass off. Like last week, there was the Yellowstone Bigfoot video, and even as soon as you zoomed in on it, you could see it pixelated around the outside. I'm like, why is anybody even saying anything other than this is crap? Because a lot of techniques like that have been easily done and debunked just by looking at them anymore. But you can tell this one was just terrible in there. But people were still buying into it, and it's a good way to look at the old cases to see the old ways of hoaxing things and the simple double negatives and all that, all the old tricks of old photography that were out there. And it's very apt because here we come again to another Roswell fiasco of pictures and bodies and all that that's going to come down to a lot of those old tests and people that have the knowledge that aren't in the business anymore. I know they said they got one person in there that used to work with Kodak and all that kind of stuff, and then that was it. And I thought, well, that, if you're really coming at this here the way you shouldn't you be contracting this out to a couple different labs and then publishing the consensus and all that kind of stuff? Okay.
Yeah, that was. There seems to be a few, on the Roswell slide thing. There seems to be kind of a few red flags. I think that, that is one right there. The other one is just the fact that they're having the reveal in Mexico seems a bit odd since it's,
right.
And then also the gentleman that's in the trailer that was released, at least that's narrating the trailer, he mentions in the trailer that he's a sports media guy. He's not,
right.
So I also found that a bit odd, where it's, if you're trying to present something, that you feel is monumental and, you want the world to take it seriously, why isn't it going to MIT or, some sort of
right.
college or scientific. So, yeah, those were the kind of red flags for me. I mean, I definitely find it curious. I'm fascinated to see what they reveal, but, those were the obvious red flags for me.
It really took it up a notch this past week when everybody was talking about those slides, and I know you had been banished from UFO updates on Facebook there, and it's a great page with a lot of people with great opinions that don't buy into this crap as easily as a lot of other folks do. So it's a really great page for that to bounce a lot of great things off of. But you were shown the door because you attacked a sacred cow that had friends in there that cried real loud, and that was another thing we were going to talk about here later on. But with the Roswell slide thing, you weren't able to see the progression of it and all that, and it was great that you noticed the connection that he had in media and sports and all that, because I jumped on that angle as soon as I could. I found out anything about this Joker because I do a Tuesday night sports show we talk on here with one of my buddies, and so I was like, okay, and then I looked even further, and he's from Chicago. I was like, there we go, there's another connection. So I go do some digging in the social media aspect of it, and what I think they got right, albeit weird, you're right, and looks fishy, but I've said for a long time that what Stephen Bassett has needed was a true PR campaign to help out his cause with the whole disclosure thing, because I think the whole him trying to be the lobbyist is the angle where it's self-serving, right? That's where he's losing by focusing on that too much. He needs to be focusing on the bigger problem with UFOs in general, is the education of the public. And it's the same problem that a lot of entrepreneurs with new products have, You'll see it on Shark Tank every week if you ever watch that, where they'll say, well, I'd invest, but my problem is telling people why this is good for them and all that kind of stuff. So I'm out, and I don't want to throw money at it. And that's the whole angle that should be worked, but nobody wants to undertake it because it is a monumental amount of money to change opinions that way. So I think what they're doing in Mexico is the same thing on a smaller scale with a cheaper budget in a country that's a lot more lax, that is more wide open to nonsense. So it really is, for me, in that angle, where if you're going to try to be the showman, if you're not going to be the carny barker, then you need to have a great PR machine behind you. And I think this guy provides that to the Roswell slide et al., Carrie Schmidt. I guess Randall's some sort of PR guy for him. I guess Bergalia is a PR guy for him. They're both out there pumping blog posts out, talking it up, hyping it. So they're a part of the machine, and then here comes, Jaime Maussan as the Mexican ambassador of bullshit, and, and then here comes, and let's wheel in Edgar Mitchell, with which that is also an odd move for me and anyone else that thinks he's credible, right?
Yeah, it is a bit odd.
To even be associated with that circus sideshow, but that's a part of the PR spin too, because that's your linchpin of credibility they're going to swing at you. Because everybody else can be Dr. Whoever, and it doesn't matter. We got astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell and all this kind of new level. So, whether he understands what he's doing is another thing, too. I don't know if he's compos mentis or if he knows that this is what's going on or if he's being bamboozled.
It's hard to say, yeah. I mean, because
right.
There's been so little info other than these blog posts and then the trailer. It's
right.
Really it's tough to call.
Yeah, right now for sure, and they're definitely in. They were in full on defense mode, but they also, get a lot of wide open arms in a lot of contingencies out there in the UFO world, and I'm kind of shocked, but I'm not shocked because I can chalk it up to not wanting to rock the boat.
Yeah.
I can definitely see why people sit on their hands on this one and wait. But if I was another detractor of it, another angle I would work, besides, the Edgar Mitchell ride-along, which, I think there may be some manipulation there, maybe not. You never know. He may be all right upstairs and knows what he's doing and getting paid well to do it. But the other side of it is it's moved from Roswell to Mexico City. That's insulting, I would think, to the town of Roswell. That needs to be the Mecca. And you're blowing it. They've got the museum. They've got everything there. That town depends on this kind of thing. And here they are, the dream team, outsourcing UFOs to Mexico now.
Yeah, I think, and then the other problem on top of, with that is that, I haven't seen anything, that really proves that this, slide was taken in Roswell, is of something that, was in Roswell. So that's the other thing, too, is, how they're correlating, it to Roswell.
Right.
It seems kind of hard to understand why they're so adamant. I know because the gentleman was from the Texas area, so that's kind of another mystery to it to me. Why
right.
they're so adamant, and that's kind of another red flag because it's before anything's even been put out. The language is pretty that has been used that I've seen in the blogs has been pretty kind of leaning on this is what this is. The language
right.
has been that way. So, that's the other thing that I'm just slightly confused about is, why, obviously maybe there's information they have, that will be revealed, but,
sure.
So yeah, that's the other thing. But I agree. I mean, it doesn't make sense if it in fact was something that happened near Roswell. You would think that they would want to make that sort of announcement, where it happened as opposed to in another,
right.
Area. So, yeah.
You should be hitting anniversary, announcement around anniversary, coordinating with the town and going all out, and making this every bit of what it should be right there in that town, to help the community out. I mean, it's that simple. If we're gonna play games and circus sideshows, then at least help out some people. At least that's what some of these conferences do in the areas. They at least do that. At least put some coin in the local people's pocket.
They do. Actually, I've been part of the Exeter UFO Festival for a number of years, and it's one of the only free UFO conferences / festivals in the country, if not the only. And it's great because it's run by the local Kiwanis, and what they do is all the proceeds from the food and the T-shirts go to local charities. So it's really good. Once a year, all the merchants see a nice little influx of people, and it's a nice event, and they have things for families, and they have serious lectures as well on UFOs. So yeah, those sort of things are great for the local community.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with making this family friendly either, and throwing a bounce house in here or there. All right, it's really not hard, and that's how you attract people, and that's how you definitely attract younger generation to it that have kids and all that. I've got 2 under 5, and I need to go and take somebody with me on a weekend. One of them, for to handle and get out of the house and all that. And somebody needs to start making that a point of emphasis, especially on these weekend trips, because it'd be easy to just wrap it into a weekend's away if you could bring a couple kids with you. And all that, it's definitely helps out the community, that's for sure. But I noticed that big difference when I'd go to like Durham Bulls games down here, over in Durham, just north of me. I'm down here in Raleigh, man. They had this massive area for kids. It was like $5 to do all the blow up and the jump around stuff, and I was like, this is great. He wasn't going to sit still for 5 minutes anyway.
Definitely.
So having stuff like that is definitely a good idea to have people to start changing who actually shows up to these kind of conferences and drawing a wider audience that way instead of the crazy way, which is what's been done a million times before. So I'm impressed that they actually put it together with an actual PR guy. And I don't know, did you check him out on Twitter? His little Twitter he started up for the whole thing?
I did not. Which Twitter was that?
Let me see if I can find it again. I know I got a hold of it not too long ago. Let's see.
You would definitely enjoy the Exeter Festival, because one of the great things that I think is excellent about it is, they balance having stuff for the kids and fun stuff, but they keep the lectures, that take place in town hall. They keep that all pretty serious lectures, and they don't get too whimsical in there. And so it's nice because they have like costume contests for the kids. And Exeter's very much the sort of town where you can just park and walk everywhere. So it's really nice, yeah. And they have chalk out for the kids so they can draw aliens, and they put recyclables out, and kids build UFOs. So it's really, they do a good job. And then the other thing that's unique is that they don't have vendors. A lot of UFO conferences tend to have vendor tables and people selling tchotchkes and stuff, and they shy away from that because it gives the local stores an opportunity to get some business. So I think it's really unique for those 2 reasons. It's enjoyable, so it's really nice.
There we go. I finally dug it out there, and thanks for digging me out of that hole of silence there, man.
Oh, no problem.
I got I found the Twitter. It was Hilda Blair Ray, and I guess that's the woman whose all these slides were or something. I don't know, but it's also at Slidebox Media. I slid it to you in Facebook there. You can check it out later.
Cool.
But it's only got about 17 followers, 10 tweets, and I tweeted at him and his Slidebox alter egos and all that kind of stuff to say, hey, you want to talk about something besides aliens, because of the sports angle, and big nothing. So, okay, whatever. You want to play this? You want to play Run Silent, Run Deep? That's fine. I know what that means. That means there's plenty of game left here in the old ball game, and we're only in about the first inning. So, and it really is maybe about the first or second because they started releasing stuff. Did you see any released leaks of the pictures?
No, I haven't. I haven't looked at any.
There was one that I saw where one of the 2, at least, I think they said there were 2 slides. I'm not sure in the whole rigmarole story, but they had 2, and this one it looked like it was in glass, like mummified, and sitting on a shelf, kind of thing. It was weird. And that's it. And I was like, okay. It reminded me of Greer's Alien, except less dried out, less pointy head, Now,
where was this supposed, the leaked photo, where was that, being posted at?
Let me go ahead and find that. I think, actually, Paul Kimball had that sucker.
Because I saw some colorful clip art being made in the UFO updates of potential, artist renditions of what people thought it might look like, which were pretty hilarious. So.
Can you see his other side of truth? Have you been blocked there, or should I just save the image?
I could probably see that. Let's see. I don't know. Yeah, I get what Jacques Vallée, and I'm not trying to compare myself to Jacques Vallée in any way, but when he, considered himself a heretic among heretics, I kind of get that now, because, when you kind of speak out against what, the crony crew
right
has to say, you start to kind of feel the wrath from all sides.
Oh boy, and you're speaking from first-hand experience, that's for sure. And I went ahead and sent you the link there in Facebook. You can check it out. It's very green, grayish, photo. But yeah, we'll definitely get into that. There's that leaked photo there, and who knows what the hell that could be, because it seems very small. But I don't know if it's on a gurney or what. I don't know what's going on.
See, I'm trying to pull that up. I'm a little slow here myself.
No problem. That happens sometimes. Yeah, and, even if you get all these experts in Kodachrome and all this kind of stuff, they, even if you get them to say it's from 1947, it doesn't tell us that that's alien. It doesn't tell us that just means that the photo was taken in 1947, right? That's all it boils down to.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really tell much. And, this other thing that confuses me about the trailer is they've claimed that they've had Kodak experts analyze the slide, but then who's the guy in the trailer? Is this the guy talking who's the sports media guy who's, opening these slides with a X-Acto? So I guess my question is, if that's him cutting the slide open and, doing various things to it, what are his credentials to be opening that up? And then once you, cut a slide open and the chain of, evidence has been broken with something like that, how do you even, say this is the actual slide film cell that was inside this cardboard? So, that's right. What I would say to that. Yeah, it's odd.
Pandora's box, and if you don't have, like you said, if you don't have constant surveillance, chain of custodies, witnesses, all that kind of junk, when you're doing things with these materials that you're analyzing, which I think you can't nail it down to a year, I heard too, by the way. I thought somebody said the best you can do is 3 to 5. And more than likely they'll end up 10 years within its actual date. So, being able to nail it down to 1947, I don't think exists, really. All they can do is say that it came from then, in that time period, in that batch, and all that kind of stuff, is try to match it with. But I don't know. They're not going to tell us how the sausage is made, of course. So it's all just our guesses. But yeah, that's our little more round-headed than the Atacama alien. And that's the gist of what it looks like there, folks. And we'll post pictures of that later, of course, and you can find it yourself, too. It'll slowly be coming out there. It came out last week, so it'll be easy to find all that soon enough. Soon enough, for sure. But yeah, the Blue Book shenanigans that went down here recently with Black Vault was quite interesting to watch. The hive mentality come into place. The good old boy network came to defend itself, and you definitely became a casualty of that over there on UFO updates. And my questions always were, when that happened, is okay, well, when's the end of all these other debates that we're having here? Just get decided arbitrarily because somebody didn't like something. Because in the end, I didn't see anything you guys did the work in discovering all that kind of garbage that was going on with how John Greenwald actually got the files from Fold 3 and just BS'd his way through it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just the whole situation. I mean, it's like cue Twilight Zone music, Bizarro world, because,
right.
I've been using Fold 3, accessing the Blue Book documents for, since 2007, 2008. Before that, I used Project Blue Book Archive. And, so when this announcement came out, it was just kind of like, at first I thought maybe they were talking about something that hadn't been released before, some new little, file that had been found. But, once I realized what they were saying, I was just like, what is going on? So, as a result of just trying to, I can't claim to, I really didn't have much to do with as far as how, Greenwald got the documents. I was really kind of more focusing on getting the point across to people that these documents have been online since 2007. Mm-hmm. They've been free, they've been searchable. So I kind of focus more on that end of things, more than how they were obtained. But, once Greenwald released his statement, basically, admitting where they were obtained right. from, it became a non-issue at that point. You no longer have to use the word alleged when, right. people just, talk about it on the internet all over the place and then admit it in their public statement. So, it's just a lesson in, the circus that ufology is, the cronyism involved, and it's also a lesson in the death of journalism because, even if you're not into UFOs, it's a lesson in how one poorly researched article can be picked up by a number of news organizations around the world and can just disseminate misinformation about any topic, UFOs, entertainment, anything, and that's exactly what happened in this case. It was just a very, mind-blowing that this sort of thing can happen when it's so well established that the Blue Book files have been available for so long.
I'm so glad you brought up the point about the death of journalism going on, not only in ufology's field, but everywhere. Because I had heard people down here in Raleigh that work in the newsrooms call it nothing but we provide content. This isn't news. This is content. And I'm like, if these 25-year-old interns get it, that I just happen to run into at a bar, then what the hell is going on here? They know what's up, and they know it's all, just window dressing on the Titanic, basically, already. So it really shows, too, and I'm glad you brought up the cronyism, because, even, and that's what was a sad part of it there, is that even when they were provided with the proof, it still had the ability to deny it, to just deny its fact, to deny its existence. And that right there shows me that even the best in this field, that I think have great opinions out there, and we're going to differ a lot of the times, and adamantly at some points and others, right? Mm-hmm. No one is immune to denying facts to themselves about anything, as long as it's a personal interest of theirs, and it's something that I've talked about a long time, is the mental disorder that is in this whole thing, and it's the ability for people to you have to be able to shut off logic and allow yourself to be fooled and entertained, and then you have to basically be a willful idiot, and then you have to not question anything, and everything will be fine for you. And you can go down these logic holes and have fun for a while, but you have to come back out of it. And you go back on with your daily life, and you go, oh yeah, well that was fun, but it was also a lot of crap, and move on. But that's the part where, normal people can make that distinction and flow between the two, but the people with the mental disorder they make it a part of their identity, and that's, most of the Greer cultists, most of the base level idiot cultivators, the Wilcox cultists, all those dopes that go out there and listen to them, take dumps all over them at seminars, but they're the ones that are the worst off, mental health wise, because they're the ones that do imprint all that stuff into the hole that is their life, which even led them down this stupid path to begin with, because they were looking to fill it up. So, that's the greatest aspects of the whole field for me at this point is the personalities, is the sociological aspect of it. These people are incredible. They're incredible hypocrites. They are incredible denialists when it's needed to be, and incredible opportunists. And I don't blame them, because, do you out there. If this is the way you want to do things, this is the way you want to run business, this is the way you want, the perception of you to be, then go for it. It's your world. Let them have it. Let them eat cake is my thing, because I remember when these things happen and who divides along what lines and who takes up for who. I am a part of the mob as well sometimes. When it's time to attack a Gene Steinberg or anything like that, I'll go grab my pitchfork. Yeah, sure, the hell, sure. I'm good for that.
Sure.
Light it up. Yep, light it up. Screw it. And, I'm all for that. Greer, oh yeah, open season. Weber, open season. Even though I've tried to get him on the show a few times, and I'm still working on that, so we'll see if we can work that over. That should be highly entertaining, that's for sure. He flipped out on one episode that Joe did, where he was called in and was giving him hell, and he started yelling hostile caller, and all this stuff, and I was like, oh my God, did he just have a stroke right there? I was like, that is the greatest. I'd never heard Uncle Al so worked up. So yeah, I got a hold of him. I said, you know what, come on, sorry about that. I'm changing my aura, just laying it on. Just laying it on, come on down. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, those it's fun to see where the dividing line is for a lot of people, and it's interesting, especially in that group, because it's fun to see some people run and hide from conversations in there, and they won't be a part of it. The MUFON crew never shows up to argue against anybody, but they'll defend their own to the death, and they'll wait for their supporters to come help them too. So that's always a good trick for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things, to say on what you just said. I mean, first it's,
right.
With this topic, it's ambiguous. So one of the unfortunates is it attracts people that see opportunity in ambiguity. So, unfortunately, attracts that sort of people. And then, the other thing when it comes to situations like this, it's, people have, they're friends with certain people, they have financial interest or possible, they're selling books or TV shows, whereas I've been doing this 16 years, I've never done this to make money. So, one of the good things about, doing that is that, I don't have to worry about the potential monetary implications of, speaking up for what what's right. And so that's like one of the main differences between, me and a lot of the other, supposed researchers, I like to call them more like UFO entertainers. Like some of these people we're talking about is, they're just not, at the end of the day, they're really not doing any research. When you really start to look at things with a lot of these people, they're putting out books and they're selling opinions, and, they're have a certain level of stature from how long they've been around and what TV shows they've been on. But, so I think that's why when a situation like this Blue Book thing happens, there's a lot of people that I think with this particular situation knew right off the bat, was saying the same thing we were, what are these guys talking about? These have been on Fold 3 since 2007.
Right.
But because either A, they're worried about those sort of, being ufologically blacklisted, if you will, or, there's also this whole, level of researchers that are more old school that just don't engage any of these people at all, that just kind of do their, which is the people that I look up to. So,
right.
I think with this situation, there were a lot of people that in the silence were sitting there going, this is baloney, but just, for whatever reason, didn't want to get involved themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that brings up another point, because I'm glad, touching on the media part that you had earlier, and we'll carry this on in the second hour here, of course. I don't know if you saw Nick Pope's comments about radio shows and blogs and all that, and how it's too much noise and it's not professional and all that.
I did see that. I did,
Yeah.
I did, and, my thoughts on that are, he obviously has a right to his opinion, and, I think there's some truth in that, but coming from someone, that is doing the rotation of all these shows, constantly, that fall into that category, it's just one of those things where, what you're saying should kind of reconcile with what you do, and if you're constantly going on these shows, and then you're criticizing them, it's just, I don't know, I think that's a little bit of a conflict.
That's exactly how I thought of it, biting the hand that feeds you. Nick Pope, here we go, doing it again, it wasn't long off the heels of your history rewrite of Rendlesham, and the absolute, at all costs, do anything to not mention Peter Robbins or Larry Warren in that book, by the way, but by all means take plenty of their story and put it in your book. But I think Robbins pointed that out in an 18-page dissertation about how much he didn't cite him or their work or any of that kind of stuff. So this blowhole makes sure not to piss on Coast to Coast,
right?
In that post, isn't that convenient?
Oh, it is. It's very convenient.
That's a level of pompousness that only the elite in the UFO circle have attained, to where they don't do any shows but Coast. They don't need to, because they've done it so often.
Yeah, which is
and he loves every bit of it.
Yeah, and that's a bummer too, because wouldn't you want to have different conversations with different people? I think that's one of the interesting thing about going on different shows. People have different interview styles, will ask different questions. So yeah, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, and it's hilarious that he comes out and he speaks about radio shows and blogs after Peter posted his and did his radio rounds, and then it did another round here recently with Holt getting a hold of some regression tapes, evidently, and bagging on Larry on I think it was Jimmy Church and some other show. He was running his mouth about him having substance abuse issues and all this kind of stuff, and trying to discredit him that way. But he got, I don't know, did you hear anything about that whole story?
No, to be honest, I don't tend to follow the Roswell Rendlesham stuff too much, because I hear stuff on the periphery, like, I have heard some rumblings of, the kind of Peter Robbins, Nick Pope thing since Nick Pope's book came out, but it's just, for me, the Rendlesham case, it's just so convoluted at this point, with the...
Oh, man.
It is. And as far as Nick Pope, I checked out back, I forget what year it was, when he did the whole, aliens are going to invade the Olympics in England, and it ended up being some promo for a video game or a movie. After that, I kind of checked out on him, after that.
Good. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
he had plenty of... He had plenty of gravitas up into that point, and then boom, here it is. He just promoting video games at the, playing the Olympic, angle and all this junk, and come on, and that's when he jumped the shark, and it's been money ever since. For him.
Yeah, and one other thing too, that happens, like, and it's a perfect example with him, is that people have a short memory in ufology, and so this allows people like Nick Pope or these other people, they're able to do these outrageous things, and then there's so many new fresh people coming to the subject every year that something they may have done 2 or 3 years ago, unless you're somebody like us who has been following this for a while and kind of familiar with who people are, you may even catch on to it, so that's the other thing too, is that, I think even some people that have been following the subject for a while have kind of short memories, and then, these sort of people kind of prey on the newbies, if you will.
Right, you know what? You nailed it right on the head right there, man. That's exactly, you hit on a bunch of great points tonight about how, these internet radio shows and these blogs and all that, we're not beholden to a paycheck somewhere, so we don't have to play nice and grease people up all the time. We don't have to sit here and entertain every stupid story that comes down the pike. We don't have to sell every stupid book that comes out. You can listen to Coast AM. And that's the entire reason that it gets foo-fooed by the upper echelon of the celebrity circuit out there, because that rains on their parade. That's like the lone wolf out there that they can't have barking at them.
Definitely.
That keeps them from going anywhere, really. And these are people that talk disclosure all the time, too, which is fantastic, that have no problem with shutting down dissenting opinion. That's what's awesome.
Yeah.
Or no problem telling you that they have a history of writing fiction.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, that's always a classic one, but we're about to hit our top of the hour break here for a few minutes, and we will be back with Ryan talking to us about Blue Book, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Pope and a little bit more about our own experiences, because I like hearing that you had something happen to yourself, and that's what got you into this. Because I always run into people now telling me I don't believe in anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, "Oh, well, you're just a skeptic now because I don't fall for everything that comes down the pipe," And I'm like, "No, I believe it, and my story is garbage because I don't have a second party or third party to verify anything. So what's the point? You're going to do to me the same thing I do to anybody else that tells you the same stupid story."
Yeah, it is difficult.
You're like, "Yeah, right, whatever. Sorry,
Yeah, definitely. It's always tougher when you're alone. It helps. It's nice when there's at least one or a few other people there, because it definitely, it definitely helps. But I definitely